All right. So we last class we talked about drawing pants and skirts and blouses. And all of these in my experience function pretty much the same way. You're mostly making symmetrical clothes. So you draw one half first and then you reflect it and you add the other half. Even if you aren't making symmetrical clothes, this can be a good place to start, and then you can adjust the anchor points with your white selection tool as you go. So I'm going to drag out, I still have my layer panels set up so that my, my flats croquis is on the back. So I'm just going to continue drawing on this and continue like moving all the pieces to the other page. Oops, God, I hate that Illustrator does that. So I'm going to make a new layer and lock all these other layers so they stop bothering me. How come I can't see my... How come I can't see the bottom of my layers panel? All right. There it is. So you can just click there to lock them all, and then we're just going to be on layer 5, and we're going to start drawing. So I'm going to grab the pen tool, and I always start on this guide, but it's really important to make sure that you've locked your guides. So guides, make sure you check off locked guides, or lock guides. And I'm going to start drawing, and we'll leave this at a little bit of a tilt. So when you leave it at a tilt, this is kind of what makes it look like a butt at the end. And so we can fix that at the end. And I'm just going to make the basic t-shirt first. Remember, I click to turn curved anchor points into half straight line anchor points.
Symmetrical.
Symmetrical, you making it? Yeah, I'm making a symmetrical shirt. We can make it asymmetrical later. So let's reflect this. Right click, transform, reflect, and hit copy. Check off preview, make sure it's doing the right thing, and then hit copy. And now we have 2, and we can slide it over. And then I have to join these 2 anchor points. I can tell there are 2 anchor points there because when I do select them both, I get this cross. If your anchor points were flat, you wouldn't get that cross, just as an aside. So we right-click, average, right-click, join. And now the shape is 1, but there's still a butt here. Who remembers how to get this not into a butt shape anymore? So I already did average and join.
Oh, then you just drag it.
You just drag it flat. That's what you've been doing. Just adjust it until it looks good. Yeah, so there's a button that will do it automatically for us, right? Because if you did drag it flat and then you wanted to like adjust this, it could be annoying. Like you would have to adjust both sides. So we can just click this, and then up in the properties panel, we can choose convert, right? So convert to smooth. Convert selected anchor points to smooth. So we're going to do it at the bottom too. Right now, I might accidentally try to move this and like, oh, it's 2 points. So we're going to select them both, right-click, average, right-click, join. Averaging them puts them right on top of each other, which means that when we join them, we're only going to get 1 anchor point. So here we have our shirt, and then we would draw our sleeves. Let me make the fill a different color for the sleeves. So when I'm drawing the sleeves, I start on the edge, and I'm going to draw puffy sleeves, I guess. And now when I come up here, like if this weren't filled, this would look done. But what I've realized is that won't fill properly, right? So I make this big sloppy armhole over here. This is my favorite way of drawing flats. And then we can send this one to the back. And we don't have to deal with like trying to get those lines exactly matching. So down here should be a bit simpler. I can just draw the cuff. And I'll just make it a closed shape for good measure. And we'll make this purple. So let's add, well, let's reflect the sleeve and then we'll add some details. And what's nice is, like, if I want to add a collar to this, I can just grab the collar I drew last class. Like, I don't have to work so hard every time. And saving up kind of a library of these is a great option. And we're actually going to talk about various ways to save libraries at some point here. All right, well, actually, I guess we don't need this one.
Hard drives are not formatted.
When I say save libraries, Photoshop or Illustrator gives you a bunch of ways to like make formal libraries that you can access through Photoshop or Illustrator. You can access it through any Adobe program, so that's real nice. And let's actually, that's why we have to bring these to the current layer. So the easiest way to change an object's layer is to come over to the Layers panel. And then there is, when you have something selected on that layer, it is represented by this square over here. So like if I had this shirt selected, it would be represented by this blue panel. If I have this sleeve selected, it's represented by this blue dot, okay? Or that pink dot. So we click on these, and then we can drag this blue dot to the layer we want them to be on. And I didn't add a back to this shirt, so I'm going to do that now. So I'm actually going to move this out of the way for a second. And we are going to go to Edit, Copy, Edit, Paste in Back. And then if you do Edit, Paste in Back, and you don't deselect, and you switch to your Direct Selection tool, and you click on this anchor point, then I am actually selecting the backmost anchor point. And when I raise it, it raises it without me having to like send this panel to the back again. It just speeds up the process a tiny, tiny bit. So then we'll drag this back down until it lines up. And we will send these shapes to the back. Okay, I also taught you how to reflect using the Reflect tool. So it's under the Rotate tool, and you can option, if you have something selected, you can option click on your center line, and it will automatically flip over that line, and you won't have to do any kind of sliding. Okay, so that's pretty much my review. Do you guys, of like the blouse, do you want me to review how to make pants and how I made like a skirt and stuff? Or, yeah. Okay, so, and then I'll do those and then I'll do details. So I'm actually going to make, I'm going to make another layer again. I just really like all of my clothes to be on separate layers, which can sometimes be unwieldy, but I think it's worth it because then you can like shut stuff off, no problem. So I am going to start clicking and dragging here. I've mentioned this before to you guys, I think, but right now my pen tool, when I select it, it looks like an X, which is just jarring. It's just not what I expect this tool to look like. Can you guys see it up there? It's just because caps lock is on. It's like,
I was so confused. I was like,
it's like it still functions completely like the pen tool. That does not change the function at all, but it just looks weird. So that's just caps lock being on. It's really nothing. So I'm gonna draw a, I am actually gonna curve the front waistline. We had a lot of debate about this last class, but I'm gonna do it and we're gonna draw a higher back waistline. If you want to have just like a totally flat waistline for the front and back, I think that that's fine in certain cases. Let's draw a nice flared leg. And then we'll come up. Actually, we'll give it a little bit of a curve there and we'll come up. So before I reflect it, I want to make sure that everything is on its own lay is like perfect, right? And then we can reflect. And with pants, you could conceivably close this first and then draw the crotch line or like the crotch seam. But I'm going to leave it and I'm going to join it like we do our top shirts or our tops and stuff. Let me give this as fill for now. So let's, I'm going to grab my reflect tool and option click on the center guide and hit copy. And then I'm going to join these two top ones together. So I'm just dragging a little selection box around them. Right click average, right click join. Beautiful. We can adjust that with our arrow keys to get it perfect. So now I'm going to make a waistband, but I'm going to make the waistband by using the Pathfinder tools. So this is something we only briefly talked about last class. And so Heidi talked about it in one of her video explanations. But we are going to draw a line for our waistband that is bigger. The line has to start outside the shape and end outside the shape. But wherever it goes through the middle of the shape is going to be cut. So I can start outside by giving it a click, and if I want it to start at a precise point, I can give it a click where I want it to start exactly, and then we can start like our curve shape. Try to get that good, and then again we have to end outside. And right now it's subtle, but you can tell this has fill on it, right? Is this color okay up here? Should I change it to a lighter blue? Can you tell it this? Yeah. Yeah, but now we can really tell that this shape has fill on it.
Yeah.
And for Pathfinder Divide to work, it has to have no fill and only a stroke. So I'm going to come over to my fill panel and choose no fill. And then we select both of them and we choose divide. Okay, and now this is two separate things. We just have to ungroup them, and we could apply a different color to the waistband. So then we could draw, you know, the crotch seam in there, and we could add in some details, like maybe it has a ruffle waistband or whatever, or a gathered waistband, but we will go back and do details in 1 second here. Let's do a skirt. Everyone good with the pants? Pants good? Okay. I'll use the divide tool again in a bit here. Actually, let me use it on the back of this shirt. So if I wanted to put a, what do you call it when there's like a yoke? If I wanted to put a yoke in the back of this shirt, that's the part of a men's shirt where like it's divided, like a Western shirt or like a collared shirt sometimes is. I would start outside the shape, and then I could click and draw the shape I wanted. and it has to end outside the shape too, and it has to have no fill and only a stroke. Yeah, I drew it with the pen tool, and you can choose both of them and then choose divide over here, and then we just have to ungroup it, and we could make this pink color. So that's the divide tool, which the divide tool is how I draw flats. Like, it's the tool that I use the most. But before I get into drawing details, I wanted to, well, I'll draw a skirt first, the way I traditionally draw a skirt. So we would draw this, click, click, and give this a curve on the bottom. And then we would reflect, grab the reflect tool, option click on the center line. Make sure, see how it's flipped the last anchor point I had selected instead of the whole shape? You maybe ran into this. You just have to hit cancel and make sure that the whole shape is selected with the black selection tool. And then option click on the center line and copy, and we will join. Oops. And same for the bottom. So now with this shape selected, I'm going to move to the pen tool, and we are going to add ruffles or fullness to this skirt by adding anchor points all along the skirt. So when you have something selected and you click on the lines with the pen tool automatically adds anchor points. And then I just grab their handles, right? It's subtle, but each of them, because I added anchor points on the curve, each of these anchor points was born with handles. So anchor point, handle. And so I click and drag on the handles until they're facing directly up and down. And this gets you a wave. And you don't have to turn them all in the same direction. This isn't a smoothing point, so it's not working right. So I'm going to click it and come up to Convert in the Properties panel. And now it's a smooth point and not a corner point. Okay, skirt. We can make this more reasonable. And then I added fullness lines, and you could do it with the pen tool, but I used the line segment tool because I know they're only going to be straight lines. So I grabbed the line segment tool and I just click and drag with the line segment tool and release these at all different heights. So now I am going to make a shirt with other tools besides the pen tool. So we are going to use something called the Shape Builder tool. And I'm going to draw a t-shirt with this. Actually, I kind of forgot. We should add backs to both of these. So I'm going to go to Edit, Copy, Edit, paste in back. And then without deselecting, I can click on that anchor point at least and drag it forwards. And then this one we will drag up. And we will right-click, arrange, send to back. I don't know what happened. It's on a different layer than its other pieces. Such a struggle. Yeah. So there we have a back, and a lot of times we are encouraged to make the back completely gray and not have any color on it. So that's what you do. And then I would potentially add a waistband to this or some other detail, but we'll come back to that in a second. I'm going to shut off this skirt layer, make a new layer, and I'm going to grab the rectangle tool. And we are going to use a combination of the rectangle tool and the ellipse tool in order to make a t-shirt. Okay, so rectangle tool, I'm going to draw a rectangle. And we can take a second to get it set up. And if you want to, while you're working like this, like if you want to be able to see her underneath, then we could lower the opacity of specific shapes up in the properties panel. So I can lower the opacity of this shape. And now I'm going to draw the circle for the armhole. And I'm also going to draw another rectangle, and we are going to use this to carve off this top shoulder. Can you guys see what's going to happen here? How I'm using this to carve this shape into the correct shape.
Oh, so you're just making shapes.
Yeah. Yeah, so if we want the bottom of the shirt to have like a nice curvy kick outwards, like along her waist, we can set it up like this. And now let's start subtracting these shapes. Well, I'm going to reflect them and then we will subtract them. So I'll reflect all of them. I'm option clicking on the center line. So now, with them all selected, we can move to the Shape Builder tool. And if you just click and drag with the Shape Builder tool without hitting Alt, if we just click and drag, it will join any shape that you drag through together into one shape. See? But if we hold Alt, it will subtract any shape that we draw through. So we just have to draw through all of these little sections. And there we have a flat. And if we needed to, we could clean anything up with this. And I did lose like a couple I missed a couple tiny sections here. So we could just grab the shaper tool again and hold Alt and click on those and it would delete them. So you don't have to do it all at once. And right now there's no anchor point on the bottom line here, so it's not nice and curved, but we just have to have the shape selected and move to the pen tool and then add an anchor point on the flat bottom. And now it'll still be pointy, but we just convert it to a smoothing anchor point. So that's how you draw with the Shape Builder tool. Does that make sense? Yeah? Are you guys feeling okay about the pen tool? Some people really like that option, but honestly, walking around, it seemed like you guys were all getting the hang of the pen tool. Yeah, so I just want you to have other options. You can do the same thing using the Pathfinder tools. So we've only used Divide on the Pathfinder tools, but if I had drawn all of these shapes, I could come over here and choose minus front. So I would be able to like select this and select that shape and choose minus front and it would carve it off. But I think the Shape Builder tool is a lot better at what it does, honestly. So I highly recommend that. We could do something where we would like draw a rectangle and then we would carve off all the shapes with the Pathfinder tool, but lots of options. Okay, let's add details to flats, and we're also going to talk about kind of other ways to color flats. So let's talk about that first. If I had drawn this shape and then I realized, yeah, should I do this one? Sure. Actually, I'm gonna grab this guy. And copy him. So let's say you followed the directions for the homework last night literally, and you just drew the outline around your shape. We're gonna review one of the ways that So Heidi talked about, where she filled this with color using the live paint tool. So if I have just the outline of the shape all one color, and then I start drawing my seam lines on top of it, and we can reflect that. So we started drawing our shapes on top of it, and let's also give it some buttons, or just a front center line. So right now, if I wanted to make the sleeves or the cuffs a different color, I would not be able to. All of these are just outlines on top of the shape. So if you have made your flats this way, it's not necessarily the end of the world. You can color them, but you have to do it in a way that it makes them hard to edit. So if you are going to use the live paint tool to do your coloring, I highly recommend that you save a copy of your flat before you turn it into a live paint object, because things just get really difficult to work with after you turn them into a live paint object. So I'm going to go to Object, Live Paint, and hit Make. And I think I need to find the Paint Bucket tool, which I always forget where it lives in Illustrator. Come on. What? I thought I was going to be able to click in there to search for it. There it is. Live Paint tool, though. Damn. All right. I'm frustrated because they've changed Illustrator on me since last year. Here it is. So if you don't know, if you click on this little ... button, it will show you all the available tools. So it was hiding the Live Paint Bucket tool from me. If you want all the tools on your toolbar at all times and not this kind of minimal amount of tools that I have up here, you can go to Window, Toolbars, and choose Advanced. And then it just shows a lot more tools over there. But we're going to keep it on Window, Toolbars, Basic, because it's a lot more manageable. And I'm just going to click on the ... and choose the Live Paint Bucket tool. But now, God, why don't I? I'm sorry, I might have to teach this another day. I guess I didn't prep enough. That's so frustrating. All right, maybe with it selected like this. Maybe it was selected the wrong way. Damn. All right, well, I can work that out, and if anyone needs to use it for tonight's homework or something, we can talk about it during break or something. Sorry. So we are going to make details on top of one of these shirts now. Let's do some stitching details. First off, we're going to talk about a basic stitch line brush, and then we are going to talk about how to make more intricate brushes. So your basic stitch line brush can be made in this using the stroke panel. And kind of the best way to do it is to copy and paste existing lines. So if I grab the direct selection tool and I click on a path near a hem, I can actually copy and paste both of these line segments by holding Shift and clicking both. I can go to Edit, Copy, Edit, Paste in place, and then I can move them up. And right now they have a fill on them, and it's good practice to make sure, even though it would be hard to see, it's good practice to make sure that your stroke lines don't have any fill on them. And then we're going to come over to the stroke panel, and we are going to choose a dashed line. And a 2-point dash and a 2-point gap normally looks pretty good. And then we also give it a round cap. So then we get these stitch lines. And what you want to do is just make sure, this is the kind of thing that I take points off for, is when people don't adjust their stitch lines so that they end inside the garment, right? We want to be making well-crafted flats where we don't have any lines hanging out randomly into space. What would that mean if you sent it to the factory? That they would continue sewing out into space like that for a little while? So let's add the stitch line to the bottom of the skirt. Yeah. Yeah.
You do the cuff and the stitch?
It depends. It depends if the stitching would be visible in the cuff situation.
So
If
the stitch is only like on the side of the cuff, because you know how some cuffs are like
Mm.
and they cuff like, I mean they sew like the sides of it.
yeah, then you would probably just put a little line like towards the edges here. And I have seen jeans represented with like whole stitch lines down the sides, like if we did this, and cleans that up, because a lot of jeans do have extra stitching on the outside edges, on the seams, but it's not necessary to put this there if there's only going to be a flat seam, right? Like on my pants, there's no extra stitching on the outside, right? Can you all see? But on the inside, it's subtle, but there is an extra stitching, top stitching line there. So maybe I would have it on the inside of this. The thing is, if you were making tech packs for these clothes, you would have special call outs where you would blow little sections up. So like you would have a section where you zoomed in on the cuff of the pant and you showed like, oh, it's stitched just 1 inch here with this type of stitching, and it would all be really specific, but we're just drawing the general flat. Yeah.
Do they ever have, I know this would like defeat the concept of a flat, but if you took a flat and could 3D rotate it around, do they have that? Is that
Whoa.
a thing?
So I don't know about flats, but I teach a class where we render clothes in 3 dimensions. But it's a flat pattern class, and then
So it is.
you digitally sew it. Yeah, so it's like it's more like digital draping or digital fitting than 3D flats. Maybe you can invent a 3D flat, or maybe an animation program would actually be good at that. I don't know.
Because that's what I was thinking too, of the animation you have to draw each frame.
Yeah, but there are so the program I use partners with Blender to make the 3D garments. So I guess potentially in a program like Blender where you can draw 3D shapes and then you can render them like cartoons, you could do something like that. Blender's open source and is really fun if you spend a little time with it. It's kind of like driving an airplane, but if you focus, like there's so much going on, but if you focus on what you're doing, it's easy. You just ignore all the rest of it. Kind of like how I teach Photoshop. I'm like, don't use that tool. I didn't teach you that one. All right. So let's add stitch lines to the bottom of the skirt. If we did this in the same way where we like selected all the line segments and then we copied, and we copied and pasted, select the line segments. and we copied and pasted. The problem with these is that they end up being individual line segments, so when I go to adjust this anchor point to like make it line up better with the flow of the skirt, I have to adjust 2 anchor points. So we're going to do this one a different way. This is the other option, which is you copy and paste the whole shape. Okay, so copy and paste, and we'll just put it over here. And then we are going to delete all the other lines. Everyone watching? I know we've kind of done this before, but we're adding stitch lines to the bottom of the skirt. And instead of copying and pasting the line segments, we copied and pasted the whole shape. And then with the white selection tool, we're going to delete all the upper anchor points. And then we're left with the solid bottom line. And then we give it no fill, and we tell it it's a stitched line, and we give it round caps. And then we drag it back over here, and we can adjust the anchor points to line up with the folds. So this one, right? So try to work smarter and not harder with flats. Copying and pasting existing parts of existing flats is always better, in my opinion, than drafting a whole new flat. Okay, let's give this a waistline. I'm going to use the Pathfinder Divide function to put a waistline on this, but you could do this any number of ways. And we don't want this to be a dashed line. And we should put so I select both of the lines, and then I choose divide. And then we're going to put buttons on the shirt. So we drew this shirt earlier. We will draw, make sure you're on the right layer. Draw the button line. And then we will also draw, here, let me make this a lighter color too. We also generally draw a like curved line in the front. And this is like the part that's attached to the collar. And since this is hiding under the collar, I could kind of fudge it. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be perfect in the front. And then we are going to add buttons. So you could definitely with buttons just take the circle tool and draw all your buttons, and then like try to get them aligned, you know, so just drawing and copying and pasting my buttons. But I don't really have to, I don't have to do that. There are easier ways. So we're going to draw one good button. So I'm drawing the circle, and then I'm going to draw 2 tiny lines for like to represent the cross stitching. Okay, so right now, I don't think this looks very good. This doesn't have the round cap on it. Once we add the round cap to this, oh, so good. And then we're going to reflect this. You guys are like, Kelsey, what are you talking about? But we're going to reflect this little shape, and we're going to hit copy. And now we have a perfect X. You could also just copy and paste it and rotate it, or draw a new X. And if we select all of them, we can come up to our align tools, and we can tell it we want to align them in the center of each other. And now that X is perfectly centered in both directions. If you guys want a review on the align tools, let me know, but just experimenting with them yourselves is probably better than me. I've tried to explain these so many times, and I don't think I do a good job. But this is my button, and I think it looks good, and I'm going to group it together. And I could actually add it to something called my symbols panel, which is one of these libraries that I was talking about, where we could drag this shape in here, and then it would be available all the time. We could just like drag it out as much as we wanted. But honestly, just working with it as a group is fine. Just make sure it's grouped. And then we are going to place the bottom button and the top button on this garment. Okay, so that's all we need to place is the bottom and the top. And then, let me get rid of this. We are going to use something called, it's over here, the blend tool. So before I use it on the buttons, let me show you what the blend tool does. Is everyone with me? You guys are talking a lot over there. Do you have questions?
No.
Okay. This is helpful stuff. If we have a green circle and a pink star, make it smaller. We'll make it real small. The blend tool will make a bunch of shapes in between these shapes that are transition shapes. So if I click on one and then I click on the other, this panel shows, or well, this happens, which this is interesting, but it's not exactly what I wanted, or it's not how we're going to use it for these buttons anyway. So with a lot of tools, if you double click on the tool, you get an options panel. Okay, so we double click on the blend tool, and then we can specify that we want to have specified steps. So let's say I want it to make 5 extra shapes in here. I can type the number 5 in here and hit OK. And then I can click and click. And there are my 5 transition shapes, right? So with the buttons, it's not going to change the shape, but we can easily add a specific number of buttons with it. So if I grab the blend tool and, well, first off, I should decide I want 6 more buttons or whatever. Double click on it, set that number, and then we click on the 2 buttons, and there are all of our buttons. So easy. You just have to make sure that the first 2 are aligned. This tool is actually really nice for pleats too. So if you have a pleated skirt, and you have like the first pleat over here, and then the second pleats, or the last pleat is over here, you can say like, I want to have 20 pleats in this, and then click, click, and there are all 20, and you would just have to expand it. Right now, none of these lines are editable. Same thing with the buttons. If we click on this, all the buttons are one joined situation. So we have to go to Object and choose Expand. And then probably just expand to the object will work fine. Yeah, and we probably will still have to choose right click and ungroup. But so same thing over here. If we want to access each of these vectors individually, we can go to Object, Expand, Object expands, and we just need to expand it to the object. And then there they all are. And we could do something like grab the line tool. Where is that? Line segment tool. And let me zoom in. and we could add like all of these lines going like this, right? And of course, I'm not making a closed shape here. That would be tricky. I would honestly maybe want to use something like the live paint tool to fill this because it would be tricky to fill, I think. But this is an option.
So top color automatically buttons, or is that something that,
Oh, that's a choice. Yeah. How you represent a collared shirt or like a hoodie, I always get questions like how are hoodies represented too? And like hoodie flats are like this whole thing. Like, do you represent them with the hood up or do you represent it with the hood down, right? So this is always a question. This one's got the hood up, this one's got the hood down. They're both acceptable. So if you wanted to draw this with the collar open, that would be totally fine. I think it might be a little more work, honestly, because it would be less symmetrical. But okay, so
I meant the line, you see that line under the button?
He's talking about that X on the line. Is that how you normally represent it?
yeah,
Or is that just personal?
That line.
that's how I was taught to draw a button, like with the X under this guy. Which line are you talking about, Giuseppe?
Bottom line.
This one?
Yeah,
That's like just how a collared shirt is constructed. They have like an under collar part, right? That's where the top button goes. So it's up to you, but it should, like, if there's a seam that's there in real life, it needs to be represented in the flat. I seem to have, oh, this is filled, so that's why the back of the neck doesn't look that good right now. There we go. And this back should technically be gray. And then we would probably let's add some movement lines to this. Movement lines are my favorite because you get to use the pencil tool and you get to be kind of messy. So if I want to add like some fullness there, they don't have to be symmetrical on both sides of the garment. Maybe there's a little bit of movement in the bottom of the shirt. And then it's really nice with these fullness lines. Right now they are just like flat and they end flat, right? They end with like flat little nubs. If we select them, we can choose up at the top to taper them, not under stroke, but next to it where it says uniform, we can choose this tapered at both ends. And then it just makes it have this really illustratory quality. So let's add some similar moments to the skirt. Oh no, we were gonna do it on the pants, weren't we? We were gonna give these pants a gathered waistband, and later on we might make a gather brush or something, but you can add gathers on your own by just like drawing. Let's get rid of that dashed line, jeez. Let me zoom in a little further. We're just gonna draw kind of a whole bunch of gathers of like all different lengths and curvinesses, and
does that shorten the material?
well, it might, but this might have been made with extra material. Or the elastic is in here now and it's making it smaller and it'll stretch when it's on the body.
Right.
So I am going to try to select all of these, but it's giving me trouble because I keep selecting this shape and this shape. So you can temporarily lock shapes by selecting them and going to Object, lock selection, and now I can't accidentally select any of those. So I'm going to select all of this jazz, and again we're going to come up to where it says uniform in the properties panel, and we're going to choose this tapered ending. And then I'm probably just going to reflect these over because I'm trying to do things kind of quick. And we could also like grab chunks that we liked and copy and paste them into new sections. Straighten them up.
How do you add the rubber band to the waist?
Like I just did.
No, is that noted that it says it's a rubber band?
I guess this would be maybe a gather or a drawstring, and if it were a rubber band, maybe it would be sewn onto it. So you would, let me unlock my tools or my shapes. So object, unlock all, and then I'll copy and paste this one. So I guess I'll do that one. Command C, Command F, and we'll drag this down, give it no fill, and make it a stitch line, right? So something like this would represent that like it's been stitched into it. And I would have done other gathers if I were gonna do this. If I were going to do stitch lines, I would have made the gathers stop at these stitch lines and then like continue when they went further on. Right? So maybe I can do that really quick. I'll lock these guys again. I would have done something more like this.
On top, right?
Well, I'm trying to fit this into the shape. Because where the elastic is sewn would affect the gathers. There would be like tighter little gathers in between each elastic sew line. So you would do something like this where
So it
we
doesn't
would.
affect the actual elastic.
Well, it's just like how the fabric lays. So looking up an example of your project and then trying your best to actually represent that project is always good. Okay, so you can draw on top of it, you can draw any of these fullness lines. We could make these lines tapered just at one end. Sometimes it's hard to make sure it tapers at the right end, but there is one where it tapers down. But yeah, so that's an option. And then again, all I'm doing with the fullness line is I'm using the pencil tool, which makes vectors automatically, and we're adding them like this, and then I'm making them tapered on both ends, which is pretty standard for how they're represented. So, yes.
So, like, you know when you make gathered sleeves?
Yeah.
Pleated, and then they have a little bit of
Yeah.
line. How would you represent that?
Yeah, so right now this sleeve is not a curved line, it's just like straight here, but we could do a couple things. We could convert this anchor point to a smoothing anchor point, right? And then give it that little bit of puff, and then I would probably just take my pencil tool and do that. Or you could add an anchor point to the sleeve. Like we can do it on this side. If we have, I guess we'll ungroup those. If we have this selected and we grab the pen tool, it will automatically add an anchor point there. And then you can move that out and convert this to a smoothing point. And this might give you more flexibility. So let's, other questions before I move on to pattern brushes really quick. Okay.
Are you gonna go over how to do zippers though?
Yeah, zippers are part of the pattern brush. Yeah.
Like bows and stuff.
Tricky. I guess I would trace I would find a picture of a bow and trace it.
And like, what if it's like part of the neck, but it's like not tied yet? You just draw like two.
Yeah, you would just draw two shapes down. One of the example projects I had last class had a lot of Joanna's had a lot of tied stuff in it. She did a lot of tied stuff throughout the semester. And by the end she was better. This was her first project, but I think what she did was acceptable, like where she's made kind of like her best attempt at a knot, or like her best attempt at like this being flown over. And these are just like circles with little ends on them, right? So like, I know you guys are beginners with the tools too, so you don't have to, I don't know. It's nice to fully render everything, but sometimes things are hard. Like, I'm not sure how I would draw that knot better than this. Yeah, other questions before the brush tools? All right, pattern brushes are a huge part of making flats. They are going to make your life so much easier. So last class we made this stitch line, this double stitch line, by putting two stitch lines right on next to each other, and that works totally fine. But the first brush I'm going to make for you guys is actually going to be a pattern double stitch brush for the bottoms of knit fabrics, right? Because knit fabrics would never have a single stitch line on them. They would always have a cover stitch, or so, like a, now I'm blanking on what the name of the actual machine is called that would make it, but they would have a double stitch line because those are stretchy. So with my line segment tool, I am going to make a tiny line that is the size of one of these stitch lines. And this is vector, so if we need to, we can always make this brush bigger and smaller, no problem. So let's zoom way in here. This has caps on it. That is important. If we have the flats, it doesn't look good to me. Caps. So we've got the caps, and then we are going to just copy and paste this until we think it's the right distance apart. And we're going to line them up. So again, I can select both and then choose vertical align center, or, well, no, horizontal align center. And now they're perfectly aligned. And now we can select them, and in your brush panel, you can choose the new symbol in your brush panel. So it's going to make this into a brush. And we want to choose pattern brush. If we can talk about some of these other brushes later, but pattern brush is the one that we want for almost all brushes that we make for flats. So all I've done is I've drawn two lines, and I've selected them, and I've chosen a new symbol in the pattern brush. Is everyone watching me make this? Pattern brushes are huge. I'm just reiterating that this is important. Not that everything I'm saying up here isn't gold, but we're choosing pattern brush and we're hitting OK. So we can kind of see the little dashes right now. It's so small on there. But right now they would be touching each other, like the next stitch wouldn't have any space in between it, and we just need to adjust the spacing. So let's give it like 50% spacing or something. So now I'm going to draw a line and test it out. And these are always editable, and I'm going to talk more about the options in that panel in 1 second here. So we draw a line, and normally it wouldn't be dashed, it would just look like this. And now we can go to our brushes panel and we can choose this brush. And there it is. So another really quick and easy one that's really handy is a gather brush. So over here I was struggling to make all of these gathers. So let me copy some of them. And bring them back over here where I'm working. So let's delete the bits we don't need. We are just going to grab a few gathers. I'm just going to draw them fresh. That was such a waste of time. I'm sorry. We're going to grab the pencil tool and just give it a few moments like this. Going in a few different directions, some littler, some bigger. But this is kind of the shape of the gather brush. And then again, we are going to select it all and choose tapered ends. And we can, before we define it as a brush, try to make it look real nice. It's up to you, whatever you think looks good.
Those are always black.
Yeah, you can actually change the color of these brushes, but details like gathers are always black in flats. You don't get creative with that kind of stuff. So we're going to select all of it, and we're again going to come over to the brush panel, and we're going to choose new brush. We're going to choose pattern brush, and we can already see in the sample, this little panel, that it's doing a pretty good job. And if we want to, we can add a little space, but it's probably not totally necessary for this one. Some of these other methods are good options in other cases, but I'm going to focus on the colorization option right now. If we leave it on method none and the key color on black, then this should just change the color of this to the, I think that this is going to be right. If we change the stroke color, the color of the brush will change. So let's try it out. I'm going to hit OK, and we're going to draw a line. We'll apply this brush. And now let's try, we put the stroke in the front, and we'll try picking a new color. Okay, so that didn't work. So we can edit anything, any of these brushes, by double-clicking on them, and all of the options are still here. So I'm going to change it to method hue shift and hit OK. There we go. So now it is changing the color. So the method has to be applied to hue shift. Sorry. But still, we would pretty much always have these be on black. So that's up to you.
So method none scratch.
I would say leave it on method none. Like, yeah, and if you need to change it for something specific, then you know how. So the last brush I'm going to make for you guys today, I think, is the zipper brush.
Can I ask one?
Yeah, please.
The white spaces in between the stitches, is that okay?
Like up here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you want. I know that that's not like what it looks like here, but that's how we represent them in the language of flats, because it's supposed to represent the needle going down into the fabric and coming back out. Otherwise, it would just be a solid line, right?
And the way you read the spacing indicates that it's tight. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
What inches you measure?
It doesn't, like, as long as you think it looks right, that's the kind of thing that when you sent it to the factory, you would specify, like, I want you to be using this stitch length when you sew this line. And it doesn't necessarily have to be represented exactly in the flat, because that would be such an incredibly small detail, like the space between the stitches. But if you were doing something like decorative stitching, right, if we wanted to, we could make like a cross-stitching brush. Yeah, or a zigzag stitch brush, for sure. A zigzag stitch would be pretty straightforward. You just need to end exactly across from where you started.
What about those overlock stitches, like when you pen something?
Yeah, I
That's a
have...
big thing. Should we
what you would do is you would look up examples of like drawings of overlock stitches, which is a thing. And
Sometimes you can get an illustrated file.
yeah, you can actually. So you might be able to find an illustrator, like this is advertising a vector download where you could download those stitches. But you could also make your own pattern
Oh,
brush
it's
really
going
easily
nowhere.
by just tracing
Yeah,
any of
okay.
these. So if you want to do a decorative stitch, that's all you do. Like I just drew this, and then we are going to grab, it's a little crooked, but I don't care. We're going to say new brush. And there I have a big crooked zigzag stitch. So I could grab this and apply it. And we would make it smaller probably.
What about changing the spool, like the, what type of thread?
Like if it's an elastic thread or whatever.
Yeah, like from each material is different.
You would say that in the tech pack that you would send to the factory. But I guess I've seen a pair of leggings where they like, I'm gonna copy this line, they had like a bunch of overlock stitches all across them, and then these overlock stitches were different colors. So if you were designing something where the stitch color was really important, I guess you could,
Keep it blue.
well, no, if it's blue, you want it to be blue. But if I were doing something where I was doing decorative colored stitching all across these pants of like, you know, maybe it was all orange or maybe some of it is pink and some of it is whatever, then you would maybe want to do something like this. This is actually an interesting point here. I have made this really sloppily, right? So let me unlock all my objects. But you can use something called a clipping mask to make this a little bit less sloppy. So if I want to have all of these all across, but I don't want to spend the time adjusting the edges of it, I can select my legs. This isn't going to work for these ones because they're touching the other leg too. I can select my legs, like, and these. Select my legs, copy and paste them to the front, edit, copy, edit, paste in front, and then I gotta make sure they're all on the right layer. I select everything and I choose Object, Clipping Mask, Make, and this clips it to the edge. So this is also how you make a ribbed neckline. So if you make a ribbed brush, which let's make a ribbed brush really quick together, and then we'll make the zipper brush, I promise. We can make a ribbed brush just by making one vertical line and then choosing new brush. And we want to choose a pattern brush from this panel. And we're going to adjust the spacing to be 100%, so there'll be an even amount of white space and an even amount of black space. And we are going to make a quick collar for a t-shirt together. So on these t-shirts, I was pretty lazy about the collars. I really simply drew lines underneath the existing collars, right? So I'm gonna make a better collar. This is how I make a t-shirt collar in my spare time. I copy and paste both of the neck hole line segments, and I make sure they have no fill. And then I spread them apart from each other. I select them both, and we are going to use something called outline offset path. I think it's offset path. And this is going to create a shape around these. So choose offset path. Let's check off preview. That's a tiny bit big. So let's change it to 0.125 inches. Well, no, I'm just eyeballing it. I want this to look like the standard thickness of like a ribbed collar. So that's a little bit too small, but 0.8 here is probably going to be good. So we do this and we hit OK, and then we can delete these interior lines. We were just using those for their shape. And now we have some nice collar pieces, and we just need to get these lined up on the shirt. I'm going to fill them both with this light yellow color, and then we're going to add our ribbing stitching to them. So we're going to bring this down, and we're also going to bring this down. And then I am going to zoom in, and we are going to adjust these handles until they are all on top of each other, because the collar would evenly wrap around, right? So you want the front and the back to be perfectly aligned. Okay, so now we have our collar, and what I'm going to do is just grab a line. We just need a curved line with no fill on it. And we are going to grab our ribbing brush, and I'm going to adjust this until it goes up to the edge. And obviously it doesn't look good. And even if we adjusted the stroke of this brush, even if we made this smaller, it would still be like either too small to fit in there or too big and hanging over the edge. So we need to use a clipping mask in order to arrange this properly. So I'm actually going to bring this back up again so we can isolate it, and then we'll set it back in place in a second. So I'm going to do this process again for the back of the collar. So this is handy, so I would write this down. The clipping mask is going to bring any artwork outside of a shape and kind of remove it. It will still be there, it will just be behind the clipping mask. So you need the shape, you need a shape in the front for it to work properly. If we made a clipping mask right now, it would literally turn into nothing. It would be a nothing clipping mask. We need to grab the back shape, do an edit copy, edit, paste in front. It's still not on the front. All of these have to be on the same layer. Let's put them all on the front layer.
So you just pasted the lines.
I'm tried to paste this in the front, but it's not going. So I'm going to try choosing right click, arrange, bring to front. There we go. It should be in front of my ribbing. Like, I shouldn't be able to see my ribbing. So this looks wrong right now, but if we select all of it, I have my background color in here as well too. So you need kind of the background color, the ribbing, and the foreground shape that it's going to clip to. We select them all, and we go to Objects, Clipping Mask, Make. Bam. It's subtle, but my outline on this got smaller. Can you guys tell that? That the outlines on this shape are bigger than the outline going around this shape? I can add the regular outline back to it by double clicking and then clicking the outside edge and then putting a stroke back on it.
So you just hit Object, Clipping Mask, and then...
Object, Clipping Mask, Make. But you have to have the objects in the front that you want to be the outside edge. I chose it to have a fill. That's wrong. That's why it didn't go. Stroke. Bam. So now we have the outside. So you can still affect the clipping mask vector, right? So if I double clicked on this, I could actually click on my clipping mask vector and like adjust the actual shape of the clipping mask. This also works for JPEGs. So if I drag a JPEG in here.
And once we kind of make this collar, we can just copy and paste.
Yeah. Yeah, so definitely definitely copy and paste everything. I don't want you, this first project is going to be hard, but then after this, hopefully you'll just be able to copy and paste a lot of stuff, depending on what you're making. So I'm going to clip this image into this star shape, right? We just have to have the star shape on the front, and then we select both of them, and we go to Object, Clipping Mask, Make. So it's also the only way to properly kind of select images in that way, or crop images in that way. All right, zipper brush time. Oh, I'm going to do the rib brush one more time on this, just as a review. So I'm going to copy and paste one of these lines so we have something to put the rib brush onto, make sure it has no fill, and then apply that rib brush. And I guess we made this line a lot smaller, so we'll try to match it up with the first line we made. There we go, and we'll just expand. And then we need to copy and paste the background shape, so I'm actually going to adjust for a second. We'll put these all on the top layer together. Edit, copy, edit, paste in front. For some reason, it's also insisting I go right-click, arrange, bring to front, but it should be properly on top of everything else. It's nice to choose a shape that has a fill in it so you can be sure. And then we'll just get these lined up. And go to select them all and go to Object, Clipping Mask, Make. And then to get the full outline back on it, you can double-click and then click on the outline stroke and put that black stroke back on it. And then we can line them up. This one would probably get sent to the back. This color would probably be made gray. And we would probably copy and paste this onto the back t-shirt. All right, let's make a zipper. Or do you have questions about ribbing or clipping masks?
I'm
Yeah.
confused on how to get my brushes.
The brushes panel.
Right, because you made the lines and had it continue, but
Oh, you have your brushes panel open.
yeah, is that okay?
No, that's good. I thought maybe you couldn't find it.
No, I found it, but then I don't have all the options that I can make.
Interesting. Maybe we can look.
You know how we can look later.
Yeah, because I don't know off the top of my head. It should just add them over here. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you didn't make a pattern brush or something, or maybe because I think pattern brushes are added down here and other types of brushes are added up here. I don't know. We'll look though.
Okay.
So to make a zipper brush, I am going to get an image of a zipper and I'm going to trace over it. And you want a really flat picture of a zipper. I've used this one before. And we want to align it so that it is perfectly horizontal. So I'm even going to drag out a guide and try to get this. I'm going to use this bottom zipper and get it lined up perfectly with that guide. Now, you need to actually make you need to make 2 zipper brushes for zippers to be successful in your flats. You need a zipper brush where it's just one side for when the jacket is open. And then you need a zipper brush that is a zipped up zipper, right? So we're going to make just one side first, and the one side one doesn't involve any special tricks. Hold on, I want this background to be grayed out, so I'm going to put it on its own layer. and I'm going to double click on this layer and tell it I'm using this as a template. Templates. And now it should dim. Oh my god! Illustrator crashed! It's really, my reaction was maybe dramatic, but considering all of my work is pointless, but was very jarring.
Scary. What do we do when that happens?
Maybe autosave is turned on this. I have autosave turned off at home because it makes my computer run faster, and I like to live on the edge. Yeah. But maybe it will show up here.
Looks like we all gotta buy our own computers.
Honestly, I have no idea what its problem just was there. All I did was try to make a layer into a template layer, but that was too much. I guess I can quit Photoshop.
Probably, memory. Magic.
I'm just magic. I can't believe this. Is it coming back?
We should like clean these computers periodically.
You know, this one probably doesn't get cleaned as often as those because this is the teacher units. So they let us leave our stuff on it. So when you're designing a zippered garment, you probably also want to trace around a zipper pull. And oh, it did recover part of it, maybe. You probably also want to trace around a zipper pull and save that kind of like in a notions pile, right? Like as you're creating some of these items, you could be organizing them and saving them.
What, the head of the zipper, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah, so like once you draw one zipper head, you don't need to draw it every time you use a zipper. You just save the zipper head and you copy and paste it.
All the zipper heads fit zippers in?
Huh?
All the same zipper head fits in?
Well, if you wanted a cool zipper, you could do something special. But okay, so I just have to bring that image in here again, if it doesn't crash. And then
It's okay that it's slightly bent down.
this at an angle, you
Yeah.
mean? I'm gonna rotate it, but it's like literally,
It's frozen.
it's like so mad at me today. Should we? Yeah, I'm gonna give it one more second here. Aha, okay. So we make this bottom zipper straight, so like you were saying, Giuseppe. We rotate that so it's straight. Then I'm gonna shrink it down anyway. And we're gonna zoom in here and draw a zipper on top of it, and I do want it on its own layer. And we are going to draw, first off, we're just going to draw one little tooth. So, we just need to draw this shape.
That's a nice zipper.
And let's make sure we have the right settings. So I'm going to get a black stroke and no fill right now. We can fill it later on.
Pretty amazing zippers.
And I want to keep this zipper symmetrical, so I am actually going to reflect it, which I know seems pretty extreme for such a small shape, but then it'll be symmetrical. So we can choose the reflect tool and we can option click on that anchor point. Make sure it's selected with the black selection tool first, and then option click on that anchor point, copy. And then we will select them, right click average, right click join, and we're going to close the bottom. And filling your zipper with a color is probably a good move. So there is our one tooth, and for our first brush, we only have to define this as a brush. So I'm going to find my brushes panel. And choose new and choose pattern brush. And we can give it a tiny bit of spacing, but it's probably unnecessary. I'm going to leave it at 0% spacing and we'll see how it looks. Something that I do want to do with my zippers though is change the method to hue shift, but I'm going to pick a new key color. So if I left it as it is right now, it would change the black to your stroke color, and I want it to change the white to my stroke color so that my zipper could be whatever color zipper I want it to be, but still have that nice black outline. It's not the easiest to do, but you click on this little color picker, and then you click on your artwork examples in here until you find the right color. And sometimes it's damn annoying. There it is. So there's the white I used, and we're gonna hit OK. And let's test out this brush. Let's actually test it out on a quick garment. So if we were to make this into a V-neck zipper, something like that, I can draw here, give that no stroke, and actually I'm going to make this lighter. Okay, so we have this section, we want it to be 1/2 of the zipper, and maybe we've reflected it, and we want this to be the other half of the zipper, and I'll get them lined up. So we are going to choose this and then choose our zipper brush, and right now you can see that the zipper brush is filled with black, but we just have to change the stroke color, and it fills with whatever color you want. So for this one, if we click on it, it is going to fill, it's going to face the wrong way. So we can flip this. We don't have to make a separate brush where the zipper is facing in the other direction and then define that as a brush, which is actually how I was taught, was that you had to make 3 zipper brushes, one for the left-hand side, one for the right-hand side, and one for the zipped brush. But you don't have to. You can flip this brush. So if in your brushes panel, there's this options, and if you hover over it, it says options of selected object. So this isn't going to change all the options of all the brushes, just this one as applied to this object. So we click that and we choose flip across and we check preview. I'm not sure which flip across it is. There it goes. So it's flip across horizontal, I guess. Flip across the horizontal axis. And there we go. And this zipper is huge, but you can lower it so you think it looks good. So that is the one zipper. And what I would do is probably draw the brush head too and drag that up there. And maybe we can draw that together at some point. But now we're going to make the other side.
Links.
Yes. Do you all remember when you are making repeating patterns, something that I would call the bounding box that had to be like the backmost invisible box in your pattern in order to like clip your pattern to it? Vaguely you might remember that. bounding boxes work the same way in pattern brushes. So I am going to copy this. I'm going to reflect it so that it's upside down. And we are going to place these exactly. I want the center. Oh God. It's not crashing though. It's just asking about the last crash. Don't send. So I want the center of this shape to be lined up exactly with the outline stroke of this shape. So I have snap functions turned on, view smart guides. So it snaps once it's aligned with that edge. It snaps. So we get that in place. And it's okay that it's changing the shape of this one a little bit. I'm not too concerned. We could always adjust. And I need another one for the other side. So there we have the zippers. And I'm actually going to bring this to the front so that it isn't all messed up there. We'll see how this looks. Maybe we would want to lower the stroke of them a tiny bit or something, but I'm gonna leave it thick because that's how we made this one. So right now, if I defined the brush and we put it on a stroke, it doesn't look good, right? It has a big gap here. It's not what you expect a zipper to look like. So we need to add a bounding box to this so that it will be a seamless pattern. So we're going to make a rectangle, and this rectangle, I am going to draw it with a fill on it at first, but in our final version, when we go to define it as a pattern, we don't want this fill. But we need to line it up again with this outside line of this first shape we drew. And we're going to match it up on the other side with, again, that outside line. And it can be bigger on the top and bottom. And this has to be the backmost object. So I'm going to select it, right-click, arrange, send to back. So now, if I make this box have no fill and no stroke, and I select everything, including that invisible bounding box, and I make a new pattern, a new pattern brush, we can already see it's smoother in here. And I'm going to take a second and try to pick out the white key color. There it goes. And we're going to hit OK. And it doesn't look that much different in here. But when we apply it to a brush, we can see it looks like a seamless zipper, okay? So that's using the bounding box in the background to crop the edges of your pattern brushes, which comes in handy for really elaborate pattern brushes. Yeah.
So with zippers, there's all different kinds.
Yeah, so you would have to, like, even in this little picture example I got, if I were tracing this zipper, it would look totally different. If I were tracing that, it would look totally different, right?
But it doesn't matter. Is there a standard zipper?
I would say that this, like, what I drew is pretty standard. If something is an invisible zipper, I'm like this one, I might even say, like, just draw that as a seam or something, and, like, put a zipper head at the top, or I don't know, it's kind of up to interpretation.
Okay, because in the factory you're gonna pattern zippers.
Yeah, you're gonna tell them what zippers. Maybe
Okay.
if you were doing something really specific. This zipper is kind of like very much like a biker vibe zipper. Like it very much looks like that exposed zipper. So doing something smaller might be nice. It might be nice to have a few options. But we can come up here and we can just draw our other line. and apply our brush and make it smaller. Not real small, but we can always fudge things. Like these would probably be over to the side a little bit. Until everything looks lined up. And what we would do is we would draw the zipper head and place it on here where these things meet. So I can actually draw the zipper head using the shape builder tool that we learned how to use earlier. So if I grab my rectangle tool, I can actually double click on my rectangle tool. Oh no, I lied. Okay. I thought I would be able to get rounded corners by double clicking on it, but you get rounded corners nowadays by clicking on these little dots and dragging inwards. Right, and let's give this a fill. I gave it a stroke. Oh, and it's behind, that's why it's so. There we go. So let's make it a little bit transparent while we're working on it, but I would basically just draw like another square and another circle or another rounded rectangle. And then with the shape builder tool, I can hold Alt and subtract these sections. You got to have the whole kit and caboodle selected. Alt, subtract, subtract. And now we have this solid shape, and we can make it not opaque, and we can give it a black outline. And we would just have to draw a couple more rectangles for these next bits. Maybe for this background one, I would use the pen tool, but we could even simplify it by like doing something like this: arrange, send to back. And we'll just make this circle big, right? So there can be, that can be our zipper head, sure. So I would group this. I might even add it to my symbols library, like I added those buttons. Especially if you're working on your home computer, then you won't have to deal with trying to save your symbols library. But there it is, weirdly with a bunch of stuff accidentally added to it. But I could pop it up here, drag out my symbol, shrink it down. Right. Questions on pattern brushes? Yeah.
Would that inside zipper be purple?
Yeah, I made them all different colors,
No,
but
the
like-
material where the hole is, like
oh, right there?
inside.
Yeah. So it is.
No, where the
What?
shirt is. The shirt. You see the shirt where it opens?
Oh, in
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, this would now be background, so like if I were going to adjust this for real, I would I might draw like a split line or something, or we could draw a rectangle and then adjust the anchor points or whatever, and then we could subtract that section. There's so many different ways to do everything. But
Is it
this,
best just to put the zipper on closed?
oh, you can do whatever you want. I just didn't draw this to be a V-neck t-shirt, but we can make it a V-neck t-shirt no problem, right? We just select both these shapes, we go to the shaper tool, we hold Alt, and we can subtract those sections. And I would convert these then to curved anchor points and adjust and get everything lined up. And then there would probably be a collar on top or whatever. That's definitely not a done flat. Other questions on pattern brushes? Pattern brushes can save you a ton of time. So if you're doing something repetitive, think, can I make this a pattern brush? That should be kind of the first thing you're thinking. And now they're all the same color.
Where do we save the symbol?
So
Library?
this is the symbol. We're going to talk more about libraries. I guess right now I'm just touching on this, and I would save your symbols like in your files, right? And I would open them up and like copy and paste this into the next flat if I needed it. And next class we'll talk about like how to save and make all these symbol libraries and stuff properly. Because I went really long on the lecture.
Yeah, 'cause I try to get this on here, my external hard drive, and then allow
Really.
once a system override, so.
Because it's, you have a PC at home.
No, this is just a,
Yeah,
fragment.
but do you have a PC at home?
Yeah, but this is only just a fragment.
I know, but
Right.
when a hard drive is already formatted to a PC, it doesn't always want to work on a Mac.
What hasn't been formatted, it's brand new.
Oh, okay, then that's weird. Sometimes hard drives just don't work on Macs, honestly, like, because Macs are,
Certain ones, right? Like the,
yeah, they're like,
that have, yeah.
I don't know the rules for them, but sometimes it's annoying and they won't show up. Let's go to break. Get out of here until 11:45. When we come back, we do have an in-class activity. We're gonna print. It's gonna be so exciting.
What are we doing?
We're gonna print our mood boards. That's the goal for today's activity, which is we're just gonna go over printing, and then you'll be able to work on your homeworks. I'm assume printing isn't gonna take the rest of the class, but I don't know. Anything could happen. Oh man. You're welcome. Stop the recording.